Are you a hardcore gamer? Do you stylize yourself as a glutton for punishment? When you join a game or play a game, do you like max it up to the highest difficulty, like cranking that bad boy up to nightmare when you can? Well, that's not me. I would say that I'm more of a casual gamer. I tend to play games for the story to kind of, get the experience of the game, but I'm also not a completionist. When I was younger, I used to be. I would try to get every achievement. I would try to unlock every trophy. I would try to, get every single, major item or defeat every boss. You can see my cat this way, I guess. She's laying down. But when I was younger, I would play a lot more games and complete them. But as far as difficulty goes, I've never been one for max difficulty. I really just play a game to enjoy the story. I'm fine with some difficulty, but it really wasn't until I played Elden Ring where I truly understood difficulty. But I found this video called I'm Tired of Hard Games by Wilson108, and it came up in my feed. I wanted to share it. Have not watched this video. Thought we could watch it together and kind of talk about it. So let's jump over.
Difficulty and video games go hand in hand. I mean, isn't that kind of the point of playing? To be tested, to be challenged? As a kid, I cut my teeth on all manner of tough-as-nails platformers that refused to give an inch. You were going to beat that level, or it was going to beat you. I can't even count the number of late nights I spent desperately trying to get that last.
I remember playing this game, Super Meat Boy. It is a frustrating game for sure. Very niche game. But I think I've only played it for a few hours.
Optional collectible, or trying to conquer that hidden stage. These challenges had me yelling at the TV.
Dude. Super Metroid was, I wouldn't say it's like insanely hard, but I had the original Metroid for Game Boy. So my mom went to a yard sale and bought this big like toy chest for me when I was a kid, like real young. And when she bought the toy chest, there was some toys in there. Guess what? There was an actual Game Boy in there. Like regular, the grayish white one. But it didn't have the back cover. So what we ended up doing was cutting a piece of cardboard to keep the batteries in and then taping over it. But it had a game in it, and it was Metroid. I don't know which one it was. I'm assuming the very first Metroid because it was the original Game Boy. I just remember that as a kid, I had Metroid, and that was actually the first Game Boy game I ever played.
TV constantly in a fit of rage, and yet I loved it. But let's fast forward a bit here. I'm now almost 30, and I think I'm tired of hard games.
Is this Liza P? I'm assuming by the name Fuko that it probably is, but I have not played it yet.
Games. Let me explain myself here. Let's actually rewind a little bit now. Over the summer, I finally jumped into Lies of P. This is a Korean Souls-like developed by NeoWiz. Many seem to consider it the best non-From Souls title, so I knew I had to give it a shot as I'm a big From fan. The first couple of hours were a little shaky, but pretty quickly I got into the groove. I settled into the gameplay loop, which is exactly what you'd expect from this genre. You're slowly combing through tightly designed environments while you pick off enemies, and every once in a while, square off against a boss fight to really test your skills. Let me tell you,
that is an interesting phrase they used. Tightly packed areas? Is that what he said? Let me go back.
While you pick off enemies, and every once in a while, combing through tightly designed environments.
Tightly designed environments. That is probably the most apt description of From Software I have ever heard. Now, I would say that Elden Ring is probably more open than some of the other games. I've only beat Bloodborne and played Dark Souls 2 for like an hour, so I couldn't say for sure, but based on gameplay that I've seen, based on other people I've watched, tightly engineered areas, whatever he said, I don't know. Stupid idiot memory. But I guess it almost forces you to fight things, right? And when you go through stuff, there's a bunch of surprise enemies. So that's actually a really well put, like a well-crafted statement.
While you pick off enemies, and every once in a while, square off against a boss fight to really test your skills. Let me tell you, I was having a blast. Given From's recent open world explorations, it was actually really refreshing to play something more linear. Beyond that, the world is just so cool in an intangible way. It's draped in atmosphere and contains plenty of secrets, but never feels overwhelmingly expansive. It's just a fun game, but as I continued forward, I began to notice an issue. While playing, I started to pick up on this constant low-grade stress I was feeling. At first, I thought it was just my perpetual existential anxiety, but no, that wasn't it. It was quiet at first, but as I progressed deeper into an area, it got louder, reaching a fever pitch when I arrived at a boss. Once I overcame, I'd feel a lot better, but the cycle would just reset.
So it's almost like a self-induced stress that we put in on ourselves to overcome or to achieve. That's interesting. I've never really thought of it that way. But I think he's right, because if you know that there's probably going to be like a boss fight in the area, or you know that you're going to have to fight probably something difficult to progress or to acquire some kind of like achievement or item or something. Yeah, he's right. Like I guess I never really thought about it, but like you know that it's coming up. So it's almost like this impending doom type thing where it starts to slowly build because you know something is coming. And is that not like what anxiety is? It's, you know, this uncertain future. So yeah, that's wow. I'm only 2 minutes in and like the guy is spot on.
Everything came to a boiling point about midway through the game, when I arrived at a boss known as the King of Puppets. If you've played through Lies of P, you probably know which one I'm talking about without me even needing to show any footage, but I will anyway. You know how sometimes you encounter a hard fight in a game, but you know that you can do it? This was the opposite of that. This was one of those fights that felt like I genuinely may never get it. I quickly grew hopeless, and that hopelessness compounded my frustration significantly. Each time I died, I became progressively angrier, literally getting off the couch and walking around to cool off.
So, I want to share a quick story. In Elden Ring, because again, that was like the toughest game I had ever played to that point. For me, my biggest hurdle was Commander Nile. I fought that guy for 2 or 3 days straight. Like I had to keep coming back to him over and over and over because, you know, he summons the other knights. So I was just trying to spend the entire fight trying to kill the other knights before I could even kill him. And I had to like keep watching videos about other strategies to try to beat him because what I was trying wasn't working. I think I was using Rivers of Blood with the Mimic Tier. It just was not happening. But I remember it being so frustrating that like I would play for a few hours, I get super agitated, and I'd have to walk away. The other, I would say, probably most challenging time before that was actually the 3 Hearts Challenge from Breath of the Wild. So when Breath of the Wild came out, there was a lot of people doing the 3 Hearts Challenge. So essentially what you would do is you would just go straight from Great Plateau to Ganon, and the only things you could use to fight Ganon were the things you got on the Great Plateau or in the castle on the way to him. And that was it. So you're literally going with 3 hearts, no armor, no, you don't have the Master Sword. You're only using the weapons that you found along the way. You have to basically craft a bunch of attack up potions and try to beat all of his forms because you haven't done any of the Guardians. So you're trying to beat all of the forms in a row with only disposable weapons, with attack up before it wears off, and only have 3 hearts. So it was definitely an insane challenge for me. I think I tried it like 45 times or something. Like it was like 40 or 50 times. It took me trying to fight him over and over and over again until I finally beat it. And yeah, I mean, obviously the frustration builds up. And here's the caveat. Like if you don't actually succeed, like, let's say, you know, he's fighting this guy, just fights him over and over and over and over and over, and then he has to step away because he can't beat it. It's like, because it's unresolved, you actually carry it with you. So sure, when you defeat the boss, like, you feel absolutely vindicated. You feel like you've achieved something. But when you don't, you actually hold on to that stress and carry it with you into other areas, which I'm assuming he's probably going to get to that point. I'm probably jumping ahead. But I already like where he's going with this video.
With every passing death, the temptation to quit the game grew more and more palpable, but I was too stubborn for that. This guy was going down. Finally, after God knows how many attempts, I slayed the dragon. The King of Puppets was dead. For the remainder of the evening, I basked in the euphoria of my victory until later that night I was hit with a sobering realization. The game wasn't even over yet. The thought of continuing forward shifted away from excitement to something more like dread. I was enjoying Lies of P, there was no question about that. I didn't feel stressed about playing more because I wasn't having fun. I was stressed because I didn't want to punch my couch anymore. The concept of reward versus relief is one I've discussed previously, but it applies perfectly here. Initially, defeating a boss was rewarding. I got my dopamine rush and I was ready to see what challenge awaited me next. After killing the King of Puppets, I just felt relief. Exhausted gratitude that I'd never have to do that fight again, that was quickly replaced with fear that the next boss was going to make me even angrier. After a couple of days off, I sat back down to give Lies of P another shot, but when I booted the game back up, I was surprised to find that it had difficulty levels. Where did these come from? I thought maybe I'd done something to unlock them, but it just turned out that I'd happened to be playing through the game right when they patched them in. For a moment, I sat and pondered. I couldn't lower the difficulty, could I? Wouldn't I be cheating myself? Aren't I supposed to get good? I don't think so. I bumped the difficulty down and pressed onward. The shift was immediate. Unsurprisingly, combat was easier now, but not excessively so. Enemies were still putting up a fight, especially bosses, but everything just felt more manageable.
Okay, so that's one thing I respect about like From Software games. There's no difficulty. And I know that a lot of people who are just coming into them are going to hate that because they're tough no matter what. But the point of the From Software games is to, yes, it's to get good, but it's to overcome challenge. And, you know, maybe there's a lot of games like this, but I feel like there's a lot of freedom in those games, more so in the later games than the earlier ones. But it seems like that is kind of the point, right? Is that it's super hard initially at the beginning, but as you go along, it gets easier. And I think that that's kind of the idea because, for example, when I was playing Bloodborne, the first few issues, like the first couple areas, like in Yharnam, like were super tough for me because you start in Central Yharnam, and those first few enemies, like they'll kill you in like 2 or 3 hits. And so it forces you to like learn them. It forces you to get better right at the beginning. But if you go back to Central Yharnam later, after you have more vitality, after you do more damage, like those enemies are so easy to kill. Like you can 1-shot, maybe 2-shot if you don't max out like strength or whatever. But, you know, it gets easier as you progress. But of course, you know, the enemies in the other areas are also stronger. So they also are, you know, you will reach a point where they're also tough, but you can over level them, or you can get stronger weapons, or you can do whatever and come back and it's easier. So I'm not against like difficulty settings at all, but I also understand the frustration of not having them because, again, as someone who generally plays games like on the normal setting, generally in most cases I will just play whatever normal is, because I'm here for more of the story. Like I just want to see the story. I want to immerse myself in the story, and kind of going on both ends of that spectrum of playing really difficult games, like, you know, Elden Ring, and fighting some of the bosses, especially when I've never played a From Software game before, coming from a background of generally putting things on like the normal setting. I'll give you an example. I've played Final Fantasy 16 recently, and I just had it on I actually had it on the harder difficulty. But then like after a while, I was like, I just want to get through the game because I was kind of losing steam with it. And so I just put on normal and just was able to get through the game super easily. And I was fine with it. Like I feel like still accomplished. But I think you kind of have to know what the mindset is of it. Like, what are you trying to get out of it? Are you just trying to enjoy the story? Okay, great. Then, you know, go with an easier setting. But if you want the challenge, then, you know, go for the challenge. I don't think that it has to be and or, but I do think that, you know, it just depends on maybe the game or the situation. So maybe not every game is the same. Some people just always crank up the difficulty. Some people just want the story.
Ultimately, what mattered is that the feeling of stress I'd been dealing with was gone. Now I had flexibility in terms of how difficult I wanted this experience to be, and that made all the difference. This all raises a question though. Why didn't I want to lower the difficulty? Why was I averse to giving myself an easier time? Well, like I said, back in the day, you generally didn't have a choice. You were beating this game or it was beating you. That was the deal, and the simplicity bred gamers that were, for lack of a better word, determined. Now, when modernity gives us the chance to make a game easier, to change the rules, it feels kind of like cheating. Beyond that, though, especially with the Souls-like genre, there's a culture that discourages anything that makes the game more approachable. If you can't beat the game as it's intended, quote-unquote, you're just not good enough.
I think he's 100% right, because if you look at the From Software games specifically, a lot of the bosses in those games have ways that you can cheese them, like which are like cheap ways to defeat the boss. And I've seen comments on those videos like, oh, you just don't want to get good to be able to beat the boss. Well, I mean, maybe some people do just want a shortcut, but a lot of people just want to be able to move on or enjoy it, and they don't necessarily want that. So, maybe the game isn't for them, but it also comes down to the way that people overcome adversity or challenges. Like the way that you approach something is not necessarily the way that someone else wants to approach it. And if the end result is still there, is it valid or is it not? I guess that's, maybe up to interpretation. But I think it actually encourages people to overcome challenges in different ways. I think that that's actually part of the fun. I have cheesed some of the bosses before in Elden Ring and Bloodborne, and it's almost like it's kind of more fun that way because it's like you found a hidden tactic. So it actually brings some kind of enjoyment to the game. Sure, you did not sit there and, go back and forth. But it almost is, in a way, it almost like brings in this new kind of avenue to the game, this new different thing to kind of make it more exciting, more fun, because you're breaking the monotony.
Getting all your daily nutrients is hard work, but nutrition gaps in your diet are inevitable. But there's an...
Perfect.
So, how can developers go about changing this mentality beyond just providing difficulty settings? Well, another game I recently played, Sea of Stars, may just have an answer. If you're unfamiliar, Sea of Stars is a modern love letter to classic 16-bit JRPGs. It's got the engaging turn-based battles, coming-of-age story with lovable characters, and a fantastical world just waiting to be explored. At the risk of being reductive, it's great. But as I was getting into it, I started feeling that same stress that I did with Lies of P. For as much as I enjoy a good JRPG, I'm just not particularly good at them, and often find them to grow frustrating. To help accommodate someone such as myself, developer Sabotage Studio introduced the Relic system. Instead of blanket difficulty levels, relics allow you to customize the challenge more granularly. So maybe you want to increase your party's max HP, or heal your party after every battle, or make attacks easier to time. You can toggle any of these options without affecting the others. There's an element to this system that's particularly unique though. In one of the game's early settlements, I found its local merchant expecting to buy weapons, but to my surprise, I could also purchase more relics. Instead of just existing in menus, the relics can actually be purchased in the game's world. Suddenly, I felt like I was earning the opportunity to make the game easier. Instead of just flipping a switch, I had to actually save up the gold through hard-fought battles. Now, they're not very expensive, it's not like they're really difficult to acquire, but just this minimal effort makes a massive difference.
I will say that is one thing that does help kind of make a game more enjoyable is flexibility. Because, for instance, if you watch like gameplay of people who beat certain things certain ways, like bosses in a video game, a lot of people will have like, there's a meta build, right? There's builds that probably the game puts more emphasis on for you to use for a specific boss. But what I really enjoy is seeing people find ways to, make things easier, because ultimately, again, is the game about beating the boss and just showing how skilled you are? Or is it about overcoming a challenge? And if you find a way to make things easier, is that really not the whole point of humanity? Is that not what we do as humans? I mean, it's why we create machines, right? To make our lives easier. And just because the machine is doing it doesn't mean it's not getting done, right? So we have, we have this whole industrial revolution, and we have machines, and we have production, and without those machines, we wouldn't be able to do the same things that we have. So in video games, if we have ways to find things to make it easier for ourselves, why would we not do that? Like, now, you might just be a masochist and enjoy getting your butt kicked. And I would say that that's actually more unique than the person who is going into a difficult situation and then finding ways to make it easier. I'll give you an example. So my buddy and I were playing Remnant from the Ashes the other day, and we were in the swamps of Corsus, and we fought the Iskall Queen. And there is a way to defeat her without getting her all the way to 0 health. So essentially, you can shoot this stalactite, is it stalactite, whatever it is, on the ceiling. So there's a point where when you get her to like half or something, she'll walk towards you really slowly, and you can kind of stagger her. And then there's these stalagmites or whatever up on the ceiling. And if you line her up in a way where she's staggered under it and then shoot it down on her, it will insta-kill her and end the battle. And again, she's at like half health, and she's a tough boss. Like she takes a lot of damage and has like a lot of status effects. So, it is a challenging battle. But in doing that, like, did you cheapen the experience? Did you cheat the battle because you did that? I mean, you still arrived at the same outcome of completing the battle. You just didn't drain her to 0 in normal, like with normal means. So essentially, where's that line? Like, did you meet that goal because you cheesed her? Or did it really, like, did you earn that thing? Or was it just basically that you cheated the system and you don't deserve it? I think that really comes down to the question of all of this. Like, is lowering a difficulty or is finding a way to make things easier, does it lessen the reward of the effort?
Diegetic difficulty is something I've rarely seen, and I think is an area well worth mining for other developers. Of course, this isn't the only solution to the conundrum. There are many ways to approach a flexible difficulty. I've seen more and more games introducing difficulty settings specific to a particular discipline. So maybe you want rigorous combat, but simplistic puzzles, for example. Some games have even introduced dynamic difficulty, as far back as something like Resident Evil 4. This 2005 masterpiece is always watching you as you play. If it sees you struggling on a particular section, you may find that on your next attempt, there are a few less enemies than there were before. That's not a coincidence. That's RE4 ratcheting down the difficulty without ever explicitly telling you that it is, preventing players from feeling like they're taking the easy way out. It's a fascinating approach, and one I suspect games will continue to incorporate more often as time marches on.
Look at those controls.
Despite all of this, there's still a pervasive cynicism around making a game easier. It didn't take more than 60 seconds of researching Sea of Stars' relic system to find the exact sentiment I'm talking about in a forum thread. It's a fair perspective, I suppose, but the fact of the matter is that there are more video games than ever before in a world increasingly inclined to distract us as much as it can. If I want to make a game easier for myself, so be it. I just don't have the time that I used to as a kid to continue trying something ad nauseum until I get it. Now, there are certain genres where I crave challenge, like survival horror. Kick my ass, survival horror, but I don't feel that way about every genre, and that's okay. I still enjoy those genres, but I don't necessarily want them to push me as hard as others. Don't get me wrong, there's something incredibly pure about duking it out with some insane platformer until you've grabbed that flagpole. Learning and overcoming is immensely satisfying and a key component of video games, but the fact remains that I likely wouldn't have pushed myself to finish Lies of P or Sea of Stars if they didn't afford difficulty flexibility. I'll always crave rigorous moments and experiences from time to time, but maybe that retro brutality is as much design antiquation as it is a design decision. Ultimately, the more difficulty and accessibility options games introduce, the more people can play and enjoy them. For my money, that's the ultimate win. Just press start and have fun.
Okay, so I'm going to link this guy's video in the description area. Ultimately, what do you think? Do you think that games should be catering to like wider audiences by offering more settings or options for difficulty? Or do you think that we as a society have just gotten softer, and so we expect that because we're not able to rise up to the challenge? Or do you think it's more unique to be able to want the hardest difficulty all the time. Do you think that that's normal? Do you think that that's abnormal? What do you think? For me, I think that having the option is good because I actually think you're going to appeal to more people. Now, I think that you could have a default setting that is difficult and that's kind of the default, but then people can ratchet it down from there. I think that having that is actually maybe a solid strategy because then the people who want to feel like they earned, those victories, it's already set at a high bar. But then if, someone is actually kind of, struggling, now they can bring it down and, feel better about it. But I understand. I don't think that there is a right or wrong. I understand that when Elden Ring came out, people were complaining. There's no difficulty settings. There's no, I have this XYZ, disability, or, I'm not good at this type of game. It's like, well, maybe that game is just not for you. But what do you think about that? I want to know your comments in the comment section below. So that's about it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.